The house was my little fortress, tucked away in a sleepy suburban pocket where the world felt softer, slower. Outside, the faint drone of a lawnmower hummed through the late afternoon, blending with the occasional chirp of a sparrow. Inside, it was just me and the quiet, my sanctuary. The living room still smelled faintly of the lemon polish I'd used on the oak coffee table earlier, but my bedroom? That was where the magic lived. I turned it into something else entirely. A private stage. My escape. In the corner, the pole stood tall, a sleek column of steel catching the glow of the amber string lights I'd looped across the ceiling. It wasn't just a prop. It was a lifeline. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, taking a slow breath as I studied myself. Mid-30s, single, a paralegal by day, but here I was more. I was. Years of pole dancing had carved my body into something I was proud of. Toned arms that could lift me effortlessly, legs long and strong from endless spins, a core that held me steady through every daring move. Tonight, I'd slipped into a sapphire blue bodysuit, the kind that hugged every curve like it was painted on. The fabric was sheer in just the right places, hints of my skin peeking through along my hips and ribs, nothing too bold, just enough to feel alive. My dark hair spilled over my shoulders in loose waves, and I'd swiped a deep plum lipstick across my lips, the color rich against the blue. I looked powerful. I felt it too. The first notes of a sultry jazz track poured from the Bluetooth speaker on my dresser, low, smoky, the kind of sound that wraps around you. I closed my eyes for a second, letting it sink into my bones, then stepped toward the pole. My fingers brushed the cool metal, a shiver running up my arm. I gripped it with both hands, gave a little push, and spun. That first spin always hit me like a rush, weightless, free, the room blurring into streaks of amber and shadow. My legs stretched out, toes pointed, and I let the momentum carry me. For a moment, it was just me and the rhythm, nothing else. The song picked up, and so did I. I swung into an invert, hooking my legs around the pole, my body flipping upside down with a grace that took years to master. My abs tightened, holding me steady as I reached out, arms extending into a clean line. The steel pressed against my skin, cold and electric. A reminder of every hour I'd poured into this. I slid down slow, controlled, then dropped to the hardwood floor. My hips swayed as I moved, rolling with the beat, the bodysuit shimmering under the lights. I arched my back, feeling the stretch, the power in it, strong, sensual mine. My hands trailed down my sides, tracing the curve of my waist, and I let myself sink into the moment. I kicked into a fan move, one leg sweeping high before wrapping around the pole again. The descent was deliberate, slow, fluid, my body melting against the metal. I hit the floor in a low roll, pushing up into a backbend, chest rising with the saxophone's wail. The lace edges of the bodysuit caught the light, casting faint patterns on my skin. I could feel the sweat beating along my spine, the heat building in my muscles, but it only fueled me. I spun again, a split grip this time, twisting around the pole in tight, graceful circles. My hair whipped around my face, wild and alive, and I dropped into a sudden fall, catching myself just before the floor, legs locking the pole tight. The music softened, and I eased into something slower, more deliberate. I slid down, hands grazing the steel, hips rocking to the fading melody. My fingers brushed my thighs, lingering there as I arched back, the pole cool against my spine. The bodysuit felt like a second skin, amplifying every move, every breath. I spun into a final pose, one leg stretched out, the other coiled around the pole, arms flung wide. I held it, chest heaving, a quiet triumph curling my lips. This was my world, my strength, my secret. And for that moment, it was perfect. The jazz track was still curling through the air, its final notes lingering like smoke, when the door creaked open. I was mid-spin, legs coiled tight around the pole, body stretched long and taut. The sound sliced through the rhythm, sharp and sudden, and I froze. My grip faltered, feet hitting the hardwood with a soft thud as I whipped my head toward the doorway. There stood Lucas, My stepbrother, his frame filling the space, hoodie slouched over his shoulders, dark hair a mess, like he'd just rolled out of bed. His eyes were wide, locked on me, a mix of shock and something else flickering in them. The amber lights cast shadows across his face, making him look younger than his 20-something years, but older too, somehow. "Scarlet?" His voice came out low, hesitant, like he wasn't sure he'd said it aloud. My heart slammed against my ribs, a wild thudding that drowned out the fading music. Heat crawled up my neck, prickling my skin, and I crossed my arms over my chest, the sapphire bodysuit suddenly feeling too thin, too exposed. I'd been so lost in the dance, I hadn't heard the front door, hadn't heard his boots on the stairs. "I didn't hear you come home," I said, the words tumbling out shaky and rough. My cheeks burned crimson. I could feel it, see it in the mirror's edge, and I took a step back, bare feet scuffing the floor. He didn't move, hands still shoved in his pockets, but his gaze flickered. It slid from my face to the pole, then down to the bodysuit clinging to my curves, the sheer patches catching the light. He jerked his eyes away fast, a flush creeping up his own neck. "What are you doing?" he asked. His tone caught somewhere between disbelief and confusion. I swallowed hard, throat dry as sandpaper, and straightened up, forcing my arms to drop even though every instinct screamed to cover myself. "It's exercise," I said, too quick, the lie half-hearted. "Strength, art, pole dancing." Lucas's brows shot up, his lips parting like he wanted to say something but couldn't find it. "Exercise?" he echoed, skepticism lacing the word. He shifted his weight, sneakers scuffing the threshold, and I caught the faintest twitch at the corner of his mouth, like he wasn't sure whether to laugh or bolt. I nodded, doubling down even as my resolve wobbled. "Yeah, it's about flexibility, control. It's not what you think." My voice sounded thin, unconvincing, but I held his gaze, daring him to challenge it. For a beat, he didn't say anything. His eyes darted back to the pole, then to me, narrowing slightly as if he was piecing together a puzzle. I could almost hear the gears turning. Scarlet, the sister figure who'd nagged him about leaving dishes in the sink, now spinning around a pole in something that left little to the imagination. "I didn't know you did this," he said finally, softer now, the edge of confusion still there but dulled. His hands flexed in his pockets, knuckles whitening for a second before he relaxed them. I sighed, running a hand through my hair, the waves tangling around my fingers. "It's something I do for myself," I admitted, steadier now, finding my footing. "It's empowering, makes me feel strong, in control. It's not just the moves, Lucas, it's owning who I am." He shifted again, rocking from one foot to the other, and I saw it, the flicker of curiosity behind the awkwardness. His gaze lingered on the pole one more time, then back to my face like he was trying to see me anew. "I didn't mean to interrupt," he said, voice quiet, almost sheepish. He rubbed the back of his neck, the flush still staining his cheeks. "It's fine," I replied, sharper than I meant, my own nerves tightening the words. "Just knock next time, okay?" He nodded quick, eyes dropping to the floor. "Yeah, sorry," he muttered, the apology clumsy but real. He hesitated, hovering there, his gaze darting back to the pole one last time, like it was calling him to ask more, to stay. Then he turned, broad shoulders hunching slightly as he stepped back into the hall, pulling the door shut with a soft click. I stood there rooted, my breath catching up in ragged bursts. My hands trembled as I pressed them to my thighs, the bodysuit still clinging damp to my skin. In the mirror, I looked wild, hair tousled, cheeks flushed, eyes sharp with something between defiance and dread. The pole loomed behind me, cool and steady, but the room didn't feel like mine anymore. Lucas had seen it, seen me, and the air was thick with something I couldn't name. The next morning, the house felt different, like the walls had soaked up the tension from the night before and were holding it tight. I woke early, the faint pink of dawn slipping through the blinds, but my head was still tangled in that creak of the door. Lucas's wide eyes, the way my voice had cracked. I could hear him already, the soft thud of his footsteps pacing his room down the hall. I stayed in bed a little longer, staring at the ceiling, the amber light still looped above me like a silent witness. Finally, I dragged myself up, tugging on a loose sweater and leggings, something to bury the memory of that bodysuit. In the kitchen, Lucas was already there, hunched over the table with a mug of coffee steaming in front of him. He didn't look up when I walked in, his thumb scrolling absently on his phone, dark hair falling over his forehead. The air was thick, heavy with everything we weren't saying. I cleared my throat, soft, testing the waters. "Morning," I said, keeping it light despite the knot in my chest. He glanced up, quick, just a flash of those hazel eyes before they dropped back to his screen. "Morning," he mumbled, neutral, distant. The silence stretched, pressing down on us. I busied myself with the coffee maker, the gurgle of it filling the space as I grabbed a mug from the cabinet. My hands moved on autopilot, spoon, sugar, cream, while my mind raced for something to say. I couldn't let it fester, not with him living here again, not with those footsteps I'd hear every day. When the coffee was ready, I poured it slow, then turned, leaning against the counter. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked, softer now, watching the way his shoulders stiffened. He shrugged, still not looking at me. "Yeah, fine," he said, voice flat, like he was brushing it off. I sipped my coffee, the heat doing nothing for the chill between us, then slid into the chair across from him. The table felt like a battlefield, littered with invisible lines. "Look, about last night," I started, but he cut me off, sharp and quick. "It's fine," he said, eyes still on his mug, jaw tight. "You don't have to explain." I studied him, the way his fingers tapped restless against the ceramic, the faint clench in his cheek. "I want to, though," I said, gentle but firm, setting my mug down. "I feel like I owe you that." He paused, finally meeting my gaze. Curiosity there, sure, but discomfort too, like he didn't know where this was going. "It's just unexpected," he admitted, voice low, almost a whisper. "I didn't know you were into that." I nodded, holding his eyes steady. "I know, it's not something I talk about much, but it's been part of me for a while now, something important." He frowned, just a little, thinking it over. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, more curious than sharp, leaning forward an inch. I sighed, running a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of the question. "I don't know," I said, honest. "Guess I was worried what you'd think. It's not exactly normal, you know? Some people don't get it." He nodded slow, eyes dropping to his coffee again. "I get that," he said, quiet, like he was turning it over in his head. "But it's kinda cool, I guess, if it makes you happy." My lips twitched into a small smile, a wave of relief loosening the knot in my chest. "It does," I said, soft. "Makes me feel strong, confident. It's more than just dancing. It's about owning who I am." He looked up then, less guarded, a hint of warmth breaking through. "You looked really good," he said, hesitant, cheeks pinking up as the words slipped out. I raised an eyebrow, caught off guard, but kept it light. "Thanks," I said, careful, testing the air. The silence settled again, softer now, less jagged. He finished his coffee, stood to rinse the mug, and I spoke up as he turned to go. "Lucas," I said, firm but kind, "thanks for not judging me." He paused, glancing back. "Your family," he said, simple, a small, awkward smile tugging his lips. "I don't want you hiding stuff from me." Then he was gone, leaving me with my coffee and a flicker of something new. The day dragged on, heavy with a restlessness I couldn't shake. I tried to focus, sorting case files at the desk in my makeshift office, the hum of the printer a dull drone. But my mind kept slipping back to the pole, to Lucas's eyes on me, to the way the air had shifted. It wasn't shame, not exactly, but the bedroom felt different now, like my sanctuary had been cracked open. By dusk, I'd had enough. I needed it back, needed me back. I shut my laptop, pushed the chair in, and headed upstairs, the decision settling hard in my chest. In my room, I flicked on the amber lights, their warm glow spilling across the hardwood. I opened the dresser, fingers brushing past the safe sweaters and jeans until I found it. a violet bodysuit, lace tracing the edges, bold but elegant. I slipped it on, the fabric hugging my hips, my ribs shimmering faintly as I moved. I tugged my hair into loose waves, letting it spill wild down my back, and swiped a quick coat of gloss over my lips. In the mirror, I looked like myself again, strong, untamed. I wasn't hiding tonight. I was taking it all back. I synced my phone to the speaker, scrolled to a playlist. Slow, rhythmic, a bass line that pulsed like a heartbeat. The first notes filled the room, thick and warm, and I stepped to the pole. My fingers grazed the steel, cool and steady. But my first spin was tight, hesitant, the tension from last night still coiled in my shoulders. I breathed deep, let the music in, and tried again. This time, it flowed. My body lifted, legs stretching as I spun, the room blurring into amber streaks. The stiffness melted, and I was moving, really moving. I swung into an invert, legs hooking the pole, my back arching as I hung there, arms reaching out. The metal pressed against my skin, grounding me, and I slid down slow, deliberate, hips rolling with the beat. The bodysuit caught the light, violet flickering like a flame, and I dropped to the floor, swaying, letting my hands glide over my thighs. I arched my back, sharp and bold, feeling the stretch, the power snap back into place. This was mine, every spin, every curve, and I wasn't letting anyone steal it. I kicked high, wrapped the pole again, and slid into a low dip, hair brushing the floor. The music built and I pushed harder, spinning fast, a split grip twist, my body carving tight circles around the pole. Sweat beaded along my neck, trickling down my spine, but it felt good, alive. I dropped into a sudden fall, catching myself inches from the floor, legs locked tight, and held it, chest heaving. Then I sensed it, a shift, a presence. I glanced up, mid-move, and there he was. Lucas, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, his hoodie rumpled like he'd been lounging all day. His eyes were fixed on me, steady, unreadable. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Instead, I leaned into it, spun again, slower, my body arching in a long, deliberate line. The pole was cool against my back as I slid down, hips rocking, daring him to look away. I rose, kicked into a fan move, legs sweeping high, then wrapped the pole and descended, every move sharp, bold, mine. When the music softened, I eased into a final pose. One leg stretched, the other coiled around the steel, arms flung wide. I held it, breathless, sweat slicking my skin, and met his gaze. He shifted, uncrossing his arms, hands dropping to his sides. "That's impressive," he said, voice low, steady, breaking the silence. I wiped a strand of hair from my face, smirking just a little. "Years of practice," I replied casual, though my pulse hammered. He nodded, eyes flicking to the pole, then back to me, lingering on the violet lace for a beat before settling on my face. "I didn't realize how much skill it takes," he added, softer, like he meant it. I stepped away from the pole, still catching my breath, and tilted my head. "It's not just the moves," I said firm. "It's strength, control, art." He frowned, thoughtful, then hesitated. "Would you dance for me sometime?" The question hung there, bold and quiet all at once.